Hey guys, Julia here, and I am so thrilled to share a series that we are launching right here on Quantum Healing Mysteries with you. As you know, in 2025, my health took a turn for the worse. I clung on to life, sometimes day by day, with very little hope. Over $100,000 in remedies did not work for me, and thus began my journey into quantum biology. So in this journey, God led me through our amazing church in Scottsdale, Jesus People Church. He led me to find out about the work of Dr. Alphonzo Monzo. And I think I spent 5 hours across 2 days just consuming Dr. Monzo's content. And I could not believe what I was hearing and watching. It felt like someone had been given the keys of what actually happened in 2020 to our mind, body, soul, and spirit, and how Satan, the adversary, has perpetuated lies and sickness and disease and pathogens that are not from nature. Dr. Monzo's work led me to a window where I saw a picture of biblical quantum healing. When my friend Dr. Christy at church told me about Dr. Monzo's work, it was like a light bulb was going off. That Sunday, I came home, I bought the Aleph-Tav body book, which is, I think, over 400 pages, began to read it, began to watch all of his content. And like I said, my mind was blown. It was like someone actually put a finger on the pulse of what COVID is really designed to be and how it really was just the start of weaponized synthetic biological warfare that we are now. I've spent thousands of hours. I've read so many books. And these are my discoveries. And I started this channel to share them with you. And so it is a complete delight to start a series with Dr. Monzo. So it's an honor to help steward this incredible discovery of what Dr. Monzo has uncovered, matching Hebrew letters, which is the only language that has numerical values associated with it, matching these Hebrew letters to energy points on the body, our physical body. This stuff is mind-blowing, and you have to hear it to really understand it. So I've invited Dr. Monzo on our channel to do a full series, and this is one of the first videos in that series where we're going to dive really deep into energy, lies from the enemy, the truth that's in the Word of God, and how Yah has created this beautiful image of living life inside our temples. So without further ado, let's jump right into this first video.
Back to the beginning where we started. The refresh. Aleph-Tav body is a Hebrew electromagnetic telecommunication system of the human body. This system is made up of the basic building blocks of all creation, the Hebrew letters, which control all the information for proper function, shape, form, and animation of the human body. The letters control the system, and the system controls everything else. So, we got into this a little bit the last time, but we have to keep building on it. Where does the body begin and is sustained? The unseen creates the seen, right? Now we're going to keep laying the foundation for these principles. What is biophysics and bioenergetics? So these words are basically used interchangeably almost. So biophysics is a science that applies approaches and methods traditionally used in physics. So the study of energy and motion and all that kind of stuff to the study of biological phenomena. That's the body. So biophysics, so it's a compound word there, bio and physics. Biology combined with physics covers all the scales of biological organization from molecular to orgasmic to, I think that's the organism, and populations. Biophysical research shares significant overlap with biochemistry, molecular biology, physical chemistry, physiology, nanotechnology, bioengineering, computational biology, biomechanics, development of biology, developmental biology, and systems biology. And I should say quantum biology, which quantum biology started Well, actually, quantum biology was first mentioned in about the 1920s. Didn't become somewhat popular or really focused until the 1940s. And by the 1950s, it was well established. And by the 1950s, they were already discovering that your cell membrane was a liquid crystal membrane. Your cells can communicate wirelessly. And there is a system of energy in the body via light communication. And they used light, sound, vibration, frequency, wavelength, all these different things they used to stimulate the body. And they found out that those types of inputs were able to be received through the cell membrane into the cell. And not only was the cell able to accept those as inputs, but it actually made physiological changes within the cell. That's a huge deal, folks, because before quantum biology proved this, the idea was more of the mechanistic view of we're just a machine, we're just chemicals, we were an accident, nothing blew up into something, and all physiological changes within the cell had to take place by a physical chemical going into the cell through like a receptor site or something, and then that chemical doing a chemical process within the cell made a physiological change within the cell. And obviously, physiological changes within the cell is how the body works. But what they found out was no, you didn't need chemistry at all. Cells could change with vibration and sound and frequency and all these things. Well, that's huge. Now, why hasn't that been taught more readily, especially in medical schools? Well, if you can change what's going on in the cell without a drug, certain people don't want you to know about that because that's not good for business for certain people. That's a very dangerous thing for people who like monopolies and like to make a lot of money on something like that. Next is the bioenergetics. So this isn't much different. This is a health system that focuses on the flow of energy throughout the cells and in the body. Usually biophysics or bioenergetics are used interchangeably, but usually when a person is talking about bioenergetics, they're more speaking about some of a field of study or modality in holistic healthcare. Okay, as opposed to someone who's just studying about the body. So continuing, it says it focuses on the energy transformation and energy exchange within and between living things and their environments. It can help highlight the root cause of stress in humans, animals, especially if something is out of balance. Okay, so this gets more into the field of what I do. So we're going to give you some examples here. What are examples of biophysics or bioenergetics? So let's see what Dr. James says here. So bioenergetics is the evaluation and therapeutic use of energy, such as heat, light, sound, gravity, pressure, vibration, electricity, magnetism, chemical energy, electromagnetism, basic forces that surround and interpenetrate us. Bioenergetics includes a whole range of hands-on methods, hands-off methods, energy techniques, and devices. Bioenergetics involves energy of frequencies, intensities, wave shapes, and other characteristics that can stimulate the repair and regeneration of one or more tissues, obviously in the body. So this is a quote from the Subtle Body and Encyclopedia of Your Energetic Anatomy. Dr. James is a very big name PhD, like myself. He's a PhD. I'm a PhD myself. My PhD is in biblical naturopathic sciences, which includes biophysics. Okay, because we already showed from the last couple podcasts, right in the beginning, the creator used energy to create everything. Now let's define some words here, and we're going to move along here because we don't want this episode to be, or this podcast to be too long. This is supposed to be one of the shorter ones. But I really wanted to stress that to you folks, that because there's a whole lot of people on Facebook and all over the place who will post lists like this and they say, this is all New Age and witchcraft. Go back to our past podcasts and look at the definitions of witchcraft from scripture directly. Now, radiation. So when we're going to talk about the electromagnetic spectrum, the first thing we should think of is everything on the electromagnetic spectrum is considered a form of radiation. Now, in the US, generally, we think of this or radiation as a negative. So when you go into other countries in Europe and other places, energy and radiation are basically used interchangeable. Here, we get this idea of, oh, radiation like an X-ray, or you're going to turn into the Hawk, and radiation bad. Well, technically, everything on this electromagnetic spectrum is radiation. See that? That's the electromagnetic spectrum. It can be described as energy or EM waves, electromagnetic waves. Some people will say EMF waves, which is more electromagnetic frequency. As usually EMF waves are made by devices. We might cover that here in a minute. I'm not sure if I really get into that in this teaching. Frequency, many use the word generically or interchangeably for the word energy instead of speaking of radiation. Now, what you should know, we're going to get in a video here in a minute, is that frequency is technically a measurement. Okay, if you see a waveform, so I'm going to go back to me being big here. So if you have a waveform, you have these things called the wave, and then it's going to have a trough so what happens is when you see that whole like bell curve, that whole waveform, one of those per second is 1 cycle per second would be considered 1 hertz. If it makes 2 waves in a second, 2 hertz. If it makes 2,000, that would be 2,000 hertz. So hertz is the measurement of cycles per second on a waveform. And that's what we call frequency. Frequency is measured in hertz. And that's why we say everything has a frequency. Okay? Because everything is made up of molecules. We have electrons, protons, and neutrons, negative, positive, neutral, and they're vibrating. And when they vibrate, they produce this field, and we measure it as a wave. Therefore, everything has a frequency. So don't let people tell you nonsense and be like, oh, if everything doesn't have a frequency. You didn't pass 5th grade science? You didn't learn about electrons, protons, and neutrons, atoms, and that they're moving? And if they're moving, they're producing energy. You didn't hear about Einstein and E equals mc squared, in which he basically proved that all matter is energy and energy is matter. They're just slightly different. They're different how we perceive them. They're different how we measure them. I mean, this is basic science, folks. All right, I think this is the video. No, it's not. Yeah, it was just a bigger screen of the electromagnetic spectrum. So you can see here, you have power telephone, radio, TV, microwaves, tasers, IR. This is UV now. So right in here, when you start getting into almost to the terahertz range, which comes all the way over here, you have the visible light spectrum. So the light spectrum actually comes from here all the way over. Now, this is what we call the visible light spectrum, which means this is not the only section of light. Technically, all of this is light. This whole thing is the light spectrum. This whole thing is the sound spectrum. But humans only perceive a very small fraction of light. And you can see from about 700 to 450 nanometers, we can see maybe a little bit more of that. That is the light spectrum, visible light that we can see. And different colors of light have longer wavelengths and different frequency, and therefore we can measure that in wavelength, and that's what we got. And then, sound is also on here, and there's a sound spectrum that we can see and a sound spectrum we can't see. And obviously there are animals who can hear things and see things that we can't see. And oh, I should make that bigger so you guys can actually, you probably couldn't see what I was doing there. But oh, it is a video. All right, let's play this video here. And so I think what I'm going to do is make this full screen, and you can well, if I make it full screen, it might not record the volume. So let's just play this here. I'll make myself small.
Something surrounds you, bombards you.
Sorry, I just want to make that a little bit louder.
Some of which you can't see, touch, or even feel. Every day, everywhere you go. It is odorless and tasteless, yet you use it and depend on it every hour of every day. Without it, the world you know could not exist. What is it? Electromagnetic radiation. These waves spread across a spectrum from very short gamma rays to X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible light waves, even longer infrared waves, microwaves, to radio waves, which can measure longer than a mountain range. This spectrum is the foundation of the information age and of our modern world. Your radio, remote control, text message, television, microwave oven, even a doctor's X-ray, all depend on waves within the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic waves, or EM waves, are similar to ocean waves in that both are energy waves. They transmit energy. EM waves are produced by the vibration of charged particles and have electrical and magnetic properties. But unlike ocean waves that require water, EM waves travel through the vacuum of space at the constant speed of light. EM waves have crests and troughs like ocean waves. The distance between crests is the wavelength. While some EM wavelengths are very long and are measured in meters, many are tiny and are measured in billionths of a meter, nanometers. The number of these crests that pass a given point within 1 second is described as the frequency of the wave. One wave, or cycle, per second is called a hertz. Long EM waves, such as radio waves, have the lowest frequency and carry less energy. Adding energy increases the frequency of the wave and makes the wavelength shorter. Gamma rays are the shortest, highest energy waves in the spectrum. So, as you sit watching TV, not only are there visible light waves from the TV striking your eyes, but also radio waves transmitting from a nearby station, and microwaves carrying cell phone calls and text messages, and waves from your neighbor's Wi-Fi, and GPS units in the cars driving by. There is a chaos of waves from all across the spectrum passing through your room right now. With all these waves around you, how can you possibly watch your TV show? Similar to tuning a radio to a specific radio station, our eyes are tuned to a specific region of the EM spectrum and can detect energy with wavelengths from 400 to 700 nanometers, the visible light region of the spectrum. Objects appear to have color because EM waves interact with their molecules. Some wavelengths in the visible spectrum are reflected, and other wavelengths are absorbed. This leaf looks green because EM waves interact with the chlorophyll molecules. Waves between 492 and 577 nanometers in length are reflected, and our eye interprets this as the leaf being green. Our eyes see the leaf as green, but cannot tell us anything about how the leaf reflects ultraviolet, microwave, or infrared waves. To learn more about the world around us, scientists and engineers have devised ways to enable us to see beyond that sliver of the EM spectrum called visible light.
You can see now, what jumps out to you about this? To me, a lot of things. Just the idea that we actually have to constantly explain this to believers is remarkable to me, because it's like, well, you can't use energy therapy because that's new age. You're using energy and frequencies every day. You're getting frequency therapy or frequency interference nonstop every day. So if you want to say that frequency energy is bad or evil, it's like, well, then you need to get rid of your phone and your TV and all your modern technology because you're basically using it. All right, this gets more into EMFs. So an electromagnetic field or frequency, also called an EMF or EM field, is a physical field produced by electrically charged objects. It affects the behavior of charged objects in the vicinity of the field. The electromagnetic field extends indefinitely throughout space and describes the electromagnetic interaction. This is one of our 4 fundamental forces of nature. The others are gravity, weak interaction, and strong interaction. Now, there's a whole lot more than just those 4 fundamental ones now in quantum physics. The field can be viewed as a combination of an electrical field and a magnetic field. The electric field is produced by stationary charges and the magnetic field by moving charges, current. These two are often described as a source of the field. And of course, this is not to be confused with lowercase EMF, which is electromotor force. That's a completely different thing. And that's measured in volts. So anything that has a motor, battery, or moving parts that runs on AC current will produce an electromagnetic field and or frequency. Still, everything is frequency. The EM field will carry frequencies of an item. DC current will also produce EMFs, which are more natural to the body, okay? Therefore, everything does produce or is made up of an electromagnetic field or electromagnetic frequency. There's a difference between natural and man-made. So most of the stuff that's natural, because of how it's made today, and because of the frequencies they use, are very detrimental to the body, not because they heat the tissue, which is what we call, if you remember, if we go back to that spectrum, you have on one side there was ionizing radiation and one side there was non-ionizing. So most of the stuff we use today is called non-ionizing. Non-ionizing radiation, since it's not the highest form of frequency and thus more power and frequency and information, the higher, the more it has the properties of heating human tissue. So most of the argument in this field is that when you have something that's non-ionizing, it's not heating the body tissues, and therefore it has been deemed safe to humans. But that's actually only one perspective. They're not looking at, is there information or energy transfer from the EMF to your cells? Is it hijacking your body's software system? And that's basically what it does. The reason why all EMFs that are man-made are dangerous to the body, the way they're produced, even though Tesla developed a lot of amazing technology, he found out the hard way that if you did it the wrong way, it could really mess up your body. And so what happens is the man-made EMFs from your phones and Wi-Fi and power lines and all that stuff, it's messing with your body's software system. Ultimately, it's messing up this guy over here, the Aleph-Tav body system, which is controlling all the software in your body. And when you start messing up the body software, chemistry is going to start breaking down, the cell's going to start breaking down, function's going to start leaving. And so the question often is, well, what can EMFs cause? That's really a bad question, because the better question is, what can EMFs not cause? It just depends on where your weak link is. If you have a weakness in your energy or your nervous system is going to go. Endocrine system, digestive system, wherever your weak link is, that's what's going to go. Okay, so EMFs can affect any system of the body. It just depends where your weak link is. Okay, everything found in nature has an energy field and frequency. These fields are very subtle, and we are still somewhat limited to being able to fully measure them, at least the general population. There are very, very expensive devices that can measure basically everything, but the average person doesn't have access to devices that can measure the frequencies of everything, nor does the average American have the money to purchase devices that can output all frequency ranges. Most devices are very limited in what you can output. And what we want to do is we want to stick more with nature and how nature designed things. So our bodies have been designed to live with and respond correctly to these types of frequencies, the natural ones that occur in nature. And they don't cause incoherence to the body or interference. So that would be the same word. Interference, incoherence would be interference. All EM fields are sending information. Since information is part of the frequency, therefore, communication between both natural items and man-made items are taking place, even if we don't realize it, sense it, or understand it from a chemical perspective. Remember, matter, that is chemistry, doesn't matter to energy. All chemistry is made up of energy. So that's what I was just explaining. Natural EMFs produce communication with our bodies called in-phase coherence. Perfect. Man-made EMFs produce out-of-phase incoherence. That means our body's ability to communicate properly is messed up. Man-made EMFs can be measured easily by the general population. All you need is like a tri-field meter. If you're going to measure RF, which is more like radio frequency for cell phones and Wi-Fi, you need an RF meter. Natural chemicals versus chemical. Synthetic, it's the same thing. We want whole food-based supplements, not synthetic. We'll probably have a whole podcast just on that topic. They look the same, but they're not the same. So, the biophysics of creation continuing. In the beginning, Elohim created Aleph-Tav, or it could say in the beginning, Elohim Aleph-Tav created the heavens and the earth. And the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim was moving. This word here for moving is the same word for vibration, vibrating on the face of the waters. That's the first mention of good vibrations. That's not a New Age phrase, folks. Anyone who tells you that, run away. They have the religious spirit. And Elohim said, "Let light come to be," and light came to be. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim separated the light from darkness. So what do we see? The first thing Elohim created or was with him was the Aleph-Tav. See, the Aleph-Tav is not just, it represents all 22 Hebrew letters and the 5 final forms, but it also represents a person. In Greek, we would say Alpha, Omega. In English, we'd say A to Z. Yah spoke things into existence by his words, the Hebrew letters. Yah spoke light into existence. One form of light, which is plasma, is a form of energy that holds everything together and sustains life. There are light sources. So in Hebrew, the word is or for light. If you have a candlestick or a lamp, that would be menorah. And you've probably heard that word before, the 7 golden candlestick that was in the tabernacle called the menorah. That's where that comes from. So that is, or is part of that word. We get the aura that's around the body. That comes from the Hebrew word or for light. See, these are not New Age, folks. This is just Bible. Yeshua is the word, the light of men, the life, the Aleph-Tav, and he sustains all life. The body has a bioelectromagnetic telecommunication center for every Hebrew letter. So those are the telecommunication centers. They're responsible for sending the information out throughout the body. The Aleph-Tav body system is made up of plasma, which is a form of light. Very different than acupuncture system. Not that the acupuncture system is necessarily bad. Depends on who uses it. The Aleph-Tav body system is Yah's language written on the body. So here you go. In Genesis 1, 1-4, there's that word or. That's how you would spell it in English. There's the ancient Hebrew. See, that's the Aleph. It looks like an ox head. That's the Vav. It looks like a peg or a nail. And then that's the Resh. It looks like a person's head. And that's where we get or. Now, if you look up the etymological dictionary, and a Strong's definition. Now, technically, Strong's is a concordance, and therefore concordances are not actually dictionaries or lexicons. So if you're getting your definitions from things in the Bible from a Strong's concordance, it's usually not the best definition because it's not designed to necessarily be a dictionary or a lexicon. Okay, that's why we have dictionaries and lexicons. Etymological dictionary is that's a fancy word that means like the history of how a word is used. So we trace the history of a word and the meanings of the word found through its historical use. And so when we look at the word or, these are different words that can be used in English to describe or. Now, some of them make a lot of sense. Light, shine, how about fire, heat, glow, lightning, morning, sun, day, lights, bright, right? What about these words? Ventilate, ear, order. Order comes from or. So you could say, in the beginning, Elohim said, let there be light, and light came to be. He could have said, you could translate this as Elohim said, let order come to be. Remember, the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the face. Some say it's chaos or lack of order. And then all of a sudden, Yah comes and speaks order to creation, because order is part of light. So what I'm pointing out here is this word for light in the Hebrew is not the American concept of what we think of when we use the word light. It's a lot bigger than our limited understanding. Breather, flood, herbs, clear. To me, this order, this light, sounds like the ether, which is a medium believed to propagate electromagnetic waves, including light. So the ether is the universal medium in which all of the electromagnetic spectrum exists. And so you can see out of the ether would then come your scalar, plasma, and electromagnetism, and then your other phases of matter: gas, liquid, solid. So on this phase of matter, it's not always necessarily formed. Okay. And that all comes from the ether. And yes, ether is not really a debate. It became a debate, but it's really not a debate, because if you look at the four biggest names in electrical engineering, Nikola Tesla, and then you have Heaviside, Steinmetz, Maxwell, all of them agreed that the ether had to exist in order for what they created to work. And look around us. We have AC current, we have computers, we have all this stuff because of their science and technology that they were able to develop based on the premise that ether had to exist. If the ether didn't exist, their mathematical formulas and everything they did wouldn't have worked, and we would not have AC current. So when people tell you, oh, ether's a made-up thing, no, it's not. That's the brainwashing, the false systems of the world try to put in your head because they don't want you to know how things actually work. Just like they don't want you to know about Tesla's real research, because they want control. Now, moving on. So Genesis records that Yah, a spiritual being, created matter when it tells us that Yah spoke the world into existence. According to the account, matter was created from a base of energy. What was created first? Well, first he was vibrating over the waters, and then he speaks light and order into the creation. Well, so this is what we see in Genesis 1 through 4. There was the Word, the Aleph-Tav, and he was vibrating. And then he spoke sound, which is measured in frequency. And what did he first speak? Light, which is wavelength. So light and sound are part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and it's the very first things we see the creator of the universe using to create everything. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. When you read Genesis, this is what you got. So anyone out there telling you that sound and light and vibration and frequency and vibration or good vibration or any of this stuff is New Age and witchcraft, they are an idiot. They're sucking from Satan's titty, and they haven't even read the very beginning of their Bible. Satan didn't create frequency or light or any of these things. And it doesn't matter how many people take and corrupt God's things, that does not connotate the definition of these things. It doesn't define what these things are. You can take every single thing that the Creator created and mess it up. And just because someone's messing it up doesn't change the fact that truth is truth. It's like, well, don't do it the way they're doing it. Do it the way God told you to do it. Do something that is in line with his scripture. Science makes two bold statements now. Light is the purest form of energy. Light holds all things together. It took a photon to make the first photon or proton and electron, right? What does the Bible say? Well, in Ephesians 1:23 about Yeshua, it says he fills everything everywhere with his presence. And in Colossians 1:17, it says, and that in him all things are held together. In Genesis 1 and in John 1, and there's a number of other places, it says that Yeshua is the light of the world, right? And he holds all things together. So scripture is telling us the same thing as the Bible. Now, the difference between what we say versus New Age is very simple. We say God, Yah, however you want to pronounce it, or Yeshua, that's Jesus. Yeshua is the light of the world. He makes up light. All light comes from the Creator. Light does not make up the Creator. Light isn't the Creator. The Creator is light. You see the difference? The main source is the Creator, and then he's light and he produces light. The light comes from him. Not that he is light, as in the light makes him up. And that's usually the difference in the New Age. In New Age, they think light is God, and therefore we are gods. We're saying, no, there is a God, there is a Creator, there is Yeshua, there is the Father, and he is light because he makes up light. Light comes from him. Light is not him. Light comes from him. And all light is from him because he's the source of all light. See the difference? All right. One more thing just to explain the difference between, so people want to always know about these things. When you get into this field of biophysics, you have longitudinal waves, transverse waves. So when we're looking, again, here is the crest and the trough. So right there, if you measure that, that's one cycle. That would be 1 hertz. On this chart here, you would see there's 1, 2, 3. So this would be 3 hertz. If this was able to make these 3 in 1 second, that would be 3 hertz. If it was only able to do one of these cycles in a second, then that would be 1 hertz. And then wavelength from crest to crest would be your wavelength, usually, like they said, in nanometers. Now, this is what we would call a transverse wave. And the way to think of it here is a rope. Now, if you think of a person at the other end of this and you wave this rope, it takes some time from the movement of the rope to get from point A to point B. So this requires time. That's why we can measure it according to cycles and wavelength, because it takes time for this to move. Longitudinal waves are usually more related to light. And so this is a solid cord. If I don't know if it looks, it's bent, of course, but it's a solid wire. I would rather you think of me holding a rod or a broomstick or something on one end and you holding the other end, and I go to push it. As soon as I push that broomstick, what do you feel? You instantly feel me pushing against it. It's solid. It doesn't have to travel. As soon as I push, you feel it. So this is what we call instant action at a distance. So when you have longitudinal waves, they're not really, I mean, we do kind of measure them by time, but they're really kind of almost out, not necessarily outside of space-time, but they're so fast it's almost instant from our perception. So a lot of this is our perception. So what this is explaining is a lot of people have been told that light is both a wave and a particle. Well, I don't think that's really true. I think that's just a man-made thing. What I mean by that is our perception of light. We can't really, when it comes to a lot of these things, unfortunately, we can't 100% define that which we can't create. Right? The creator can create these things, we can't. We can use them, we can change them, we can bend them, we can do all kinds of things with them. So we are very limited still on completely understanding everything there is to know about light. There's so much we don't know. And so when you look at a longitudinal wave, you notice here there's areas where it gets compressed, and then there's areas where it gets refraction, and they get spread out. So when it gets compressed, from our perspective, that looks like a particle. And where they have the refraction, that looks like a wave. And that's why we say light is both things. I don't know if light is really both things as much as it just looks like it to us. Okay, so that's how that works, if you were interested. Here's another great video. And so what I want you to pay attention to is how sound can affect matter. And go back to this definition. And when we get into plasma physics, things like the sun, lightning, fire are forms of plasma. I want you to think about all the different forms of plasma you see in this video. All right, now let's see if it's going to play. It's being weird. Usually if you hit the click button, it's supposed to play, but it wants me to click. Maybe it's because I had the laser pointer. Take the laser pointer off and see what happens. Nope. It's just because it's going to be a jerk. All right. Oh, well, good thing I looked at that. It's so low, you're not going to hear anything. Sound is everything in this.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter. everything owes its existence solely and completely to sound.
All right. So some of that you could see the big Tesla coil. They had those suits on, which were basically to help keep them grounded, so they didn't kill themselves. It's the current that will kill you, not the voltage. But yeah, that's a huge, powerful Tesla coil they had going there. So that was producing very high current and voltage. And so that's the key. The key to health is very powerful magnetic fields for dealing with today's modern technology that's attacking us. So you want huge magnetic fields and huge voltage, but very, very low current, because the current is what is dangerous. But you see in that video, how much did physical matter change based on nothing more than the vibration of sound? Sound like Genesis? Yeah. So when it comes to healing, we need to use the things that were the basic building blocks that the Creator used to create everything. And we need to get away from this mindset that we have to have something physical. That doesn't mean you don't need nutrients, of course, because the body does have a physical part to it. But we shouldn't be reliant on chemistry and drugs only for healing, because we now can see that vibration and frequency and sound and light has very powerful effects on the body, has very powerful effects on matter. And there's nothing new age about it. There's nothing witchcraft about that at all. Now, if Satan wants to use electromagnetic fields to hurt you, well, he can do whatever he wants. Not that it's a good thing, but he's going to do what he's going to do. So it's time for us to learn how to use the tools that Yah gave us for the body. Next principle, we're actually almost done here now, is we talked about this before, the communication in physics. So this is a visual representation of in-phase coherence, which is proper communication. Messages received and understood, right? So here's your radio station. It's sending these EMF or whatever. These would be radio waves. Your radio has receivers. Of course, they don't look like this anymore now, but they used to. These antennas pick up the signal because you can dial into the frequency that this wave was broadcast on. Let's say it's 95.5. You tie into 95.5. And if you don't know, you have AM and FM. Everyone probably should know that. The younger generations might not know what I'm talking about. But AM and FM, that stands for amplitude modification and frequency modulation. Modulation is the word I'm looking for. Amplitude modulation and frequency modulation. So modulators. And we have parts of the Aleph-Tav body system that does modulation. And then we have the parts of the body that actually send the messages, like the centers. This would be the Hebrew control points, send that information. And then it goes all over the body. Now, if you have out of phase incoherence, this is in communication, we would say improper communication. So either the message was not completely received, or it was misunderstood, or maybe the person who was communicating is incoherent and they don't even know what they said. And so this is what, if this occurs on or in the body, especially on the cellular level, that's a very bad thing, right? You want this. If this is occurring in your cells, that means you're going to have cells breaking down and problems in the tissues and organs and dysfunction. You don't want that. So a good way of basic concept, a principle of energy in the body is you want to think of proper circulation and resonation. And that the best way to think of this is, since this is plasma energy, which is like a basically a form of light, you still want to think of it kind of as water flowing through the body. All right, that's the best way to think of it. And when this is happening, you have this nice circulation. There's a resonance coming off of it. Now, if someone steps on that hose, you have a problem. And you actually have a problem in multiple locations, because you have the cause right here. After where the cause is, you have a weakened state because there's congestion. So I don't like to say completely blocked, but congestion. There's still a little water trickling out, but it's not enough. There's a lack. So this part of the body is going to have a weakened state, and this is where cells are going to lose ATP energy and start breaking down, and they're going to be weak. Above or before where that cause of congestion is, you're going to have energy backing up and building up, and now you're going to get it in a stress state. There's too much overwork, hyper. This is hypersensitive. This is lack of energy, hypo. And now think that this hose is carrying information and energy to the different parts of the body. And this is happening. And this is what's getting to your liver. Oh, that's not good. That means your liver is going to be weak. It's not going to have the energy. It's not going to even be able to do its job. And you're going to end up with a serious condition. Now, at the same time, let's say this is building up in your head. Well, now you're going to have headaches and migraines and brain fog and all kinds of problems because there's too much overactivity in the brain and it's not getting down into the liver. And this is how problems occur in the body. And unfortunately, in the medical system, they can never figure it out, because what do? Well, in the medical system, we would go and, see this nozzle? This nozzle is a problem. So cut it off and put a new nozzle on. Oh, that didn't fix the problem. Oh, well, there's this big lump of stuff over here. Let's cut it out. Well, that's not the problem. Well, what about someone's stepping on the hose? Well, they don't believe in the hose. And so they're not going to look for that. Just like you have electrical wires that go through your wall. And if your light's not working, well, you can replace a light with a new light bulb. That won't fix it. You can cut out the light switch and put in a new light switch. That might not fix it. Well, what happens if the problem is the cord that goes from the light switch to the light? Well, if you don't believe that cord exists, which most allopathic doctors do not believe in the energy systems of the body, then you don't know how to fix the problem. So basic recap here. E equals mc squared. Everything is energy, basically. That basically means matter and energy are related. Energy equals matter. Everything in the body has a frequency because everything's made up of atoms. Atoms of vibrating frequency. Bioelectromagnetic or bioelectric systems work via communication. Bioelectric systems circulate and function as resonators of frequency, both force, movement, information. That's what I mean. Force movement, I mean by the power to power the body like a battery. So the active power and the information which manifests into the physical body. The unseen creates the seen. And I say shadow DNA because we now know that there's a shadow DNA. There's an energetic DNA that makes up the physical DNA. And based on research out of Russia, we now know that the DNA is an antenna, and it brings in information, and then it shapes the information and tells the body what to do with the information or how the body needs to create itself. But the interesting thing is they're finding out more and more now is the DNA itself actually does not contain the information. So now they have a dilemma of where's the information coming from? Well, the information is coming from the creator through the Aleph-Tav body system, which then, depending on how that system is working, either functioning or not functioning, depends on how the shadow DNA works, which then depends on how the physical DNA works, which then depends on how the body manifests itself. So if you want physical problems, all the enemy has to do is mess with the Aleph-Tav body system. And then he can mess with your DNA and then mess with the physical body. Now that takes time from one step to another. That's not overnight. These subtle energy systems do not like to be forced. So one of the big things you're going to find out about me is I'm not a big fan of a lot of devices. I will not recommend a lot of devices. So if you like devices and things to plug in the wall that you attach to your body, you're probably not going to care for what I say much, because a lot of those devices are nothing more than forced stimulation on the energy systems. And that's a very bad thing, because whenever you have forced stimulation, you have the probability of damage being done. Does that mean always damage? No. You will also have forced stimulation of symptom maintenance. This also is true on the chemistry level of the body when you're using synthetic vitamins. It's the same thing. They basically act as drugs. And what they do is they very powerfully force symptom maintenance in the body. And because it has a very powerful force on the symptoms, you feel good using it. So you assume it's good for you. Assumptions. Until you stop using it and all your problems come back, or you develop a bigger problem because you've been forcing something in the body for too long. We want methods that don't force the energy systems, that just encourage these systems to work the way they're supposed to. And it's the body that does the healing. The body has its own innate wisdom, and the body can heal itself if we give it what it needs. So to put this into perspective, the creator provides the breath of life, light, force, movement, information, spirit. All of that together makes up the software of the body. That's the unseen part of the body. Controlled by electromagnetic systems like the Aleph-Tav body, acupuncture meridians, what people call chakras, or really wheels of light. And yes, they exist, and no, they don't have to be evil. You can use them for the wrong reason, that's for sure. There are plenty of people using chakras the wrong way, using meridians the wrong way, using acupuncture the wrong way, and then there's people doing it right. So when all these systems are working together, they work all together in a proper in-phase coherence, like a giant electromagnetic telecommunication system. That creates the body's software, which is the informational level, which then tells your chemical level what to do, and then your cells, and then your tissues, and your organs, and the organism, and then the organism. And these levels 2 through 7 is the physical hardware that we see. We can see chemicals, we can see cells, we can see tissues. The informational level is a level that you cannot see, at least without special devices that we have today. Matter doesn't matter to energy. Matter and energy work together. If you don't have energy, you don't have matter. If you don't have matter, you don't have energy. Okay? So we need to get rid of the old models and start understanding the new models, that frequency and vibration and sound and light can be just as powerful as a chemical structure. And that's it. That's the presentation or the podcast for today. We got through the biophysics of creation. So we'll see if Julia here has anything else to say. And if not, I guess I will see you the next time. And I think the next time we do another podcast on Aleph-Tav body, like I said, we're going to get into now the Hebrew bioenergetic temple. So now we laid out the physics, the biophysics. We're going to get into how the body represents a temple and all the Hebrew that we see related to these communication systems of the body. All right. Shalom, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.